China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by
China
Sushi
Watch
Market
Radio.
Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! Well, a very good afternoon to you. I'm Bill Graff, along with Michael Olson and Jonty. We are all here today to talk about things happening in China. We have a great program scheduled for you. There's a lot going on involving China. Really, truly there is. We want to invite you, first off, to give us a call at 479-1080, 479-1080. And we will be happy to put your phone call up on the board. We have a lot to talk about. There are so many things. We decided to load these in order on the website. So if you'd like to follow along with the program today, then Jonty has put all this information on the China Watch Radio website. And you can go and look at these topics actually in order.
What is the China Watch Radio website?
ChinaWatchRadio.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And if you type in China Watch Radio, it'll pop up. So we have a lot to, like I said, to talk about. Jonty's been following the first story in the list of stuff we want to talk about.
Let's
today.
run through the list really quickly.
Well, okay. China has denied reports that it tested hypersonic missiles.
Did it or did it not?
We don't know. Breathtaking expansion. The United States Strategic Command leader expects further revelations about China's nuclear weapons achievement.
Do they have more or not?
Okay. China's top leaders set a date for a key meeting next month.
Will they or won't they?
Evergrande makes onshore coupon payment as offshore creditors brace for default.
Will they or won't they?
I don't know if they will or not. We're going to find out. And then we have a bunch of mega developers which are going bankrupt, much as Evergrande is. A big story in China.
Are they or aren't they?
Aren't they going bankrupt? Bloomberg may have quashed a story over fear of retribution from China. Bloomberg we're talking about.
Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Did they or did they not?
We don't know. Chinese military newspaper calls for a people's war to counter U.S. spies after the CIA set up a new China unit.
What
did
is
they?
did they or did they?
Yeah. All right. So we saw the theatrical trailers for James Bond, right? Well, there's no time for U.S. James Bond theatrics. Let's talk recoupling. China envoy Qin Jiang says. And I think finally...
Recoupling? That's an interesting expression.
Well, yeah.
Recoupling.
There's so many other things to talk about here.
Energy crisis?
Yeah, the energy crisis.
The Australian coal situation?
Yes.
Very, very big deal there. Oh, my goodness.
That's a very big deal. Also, really a equally big deal, I think, is the fact that most of fentanyl comes from China.
Via Mexico.
And we have a fentanyl crisis in the United States.
2 milligrams of fentanyl is deadly. 2 milligrams. Could you see 2 milligrams if you put it on the end of your finger?
I don't think so. Not me, anyway. I'm that blind. And COVID plans. Echo Health Alliance for 2018's grant proposal predicts COVID-19 pandemic. 2018.
Yep. You know what they did? Oh, well, you have to stay tuned to hear what they did.
Well, good afternoon, Jonty. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Billy. Thanks so much for running through all of those articles.
You know, we have just a bunch of stuff to talk about. We thought you should lead this off today because of the fact that you've been following the news reports out of China about this hypersonic missile. Tell us a little about that.
Did they or did they not shoot?
I'm a bit of a war dork. I'm totally against war, but I also, in terms of just my life story, I've just been always fascinated by military history and military technology. And hearing a report that China may have just recently tested a hypersonic missile is something that pricks up my ears and makes me pay attention. Now, a hypersonic missile, just to give you all some idea, is different than an intercontinental ballistic missile in that the traditional ICBM goes up, and then comes down. And one of the aspects of that is that it's relatively easy to detect, and you have a certain amount of time to react. So if you see a bunch of these launches happening over the horizon, then you get on the red phone and you say, bring, hey guys, what's going on here? The thing with the hypersonic missile is that there's really kind of two general types of a hypersonic missile. One uses a technology called a scramjet. Now, if you think about a normal jet engine, it's got those blades on the front. It has that turbine on the front. That's not what drives it, but what that does is it creates air compression inside of a chamber so that you're igniting compressed air, and that's blasting out of the back. That's basically a jet engine. A scramjet is an engine designed so that the actual funnel shape of the intake creates that same compression. Of course, there's much less drag. So you can make something go very, very, very darn fast using a scramjet. The other technology is one that I honestly don't fully understand, but I'll do my best to sort of explain. It usually involves a missile launch that gets a little aerodynamic vehicle going very fast, and that aerodynamic vehicle kind of skips into the air's atmosphere and uses the sonic boom as sort of a wave that it rides. I don't fully get that.
Kind of like surfing?
That's right.
Yeah, actually it is almost exactly like surfing.
The second type is the type that China is accused of having recently tested. Now, the Chinese say, we're just testing some little space vehicle thing and see if it's reusable and stuff like that. I imagine the concern is how fast the thing went. To be hypersonic, it would be going somewhere between 5 and 10 times the speed of sound. So we're looking in the range of about 4,000 to close to 8,000 miles per hour. The circumference of the Earth being 25,000 miles round. The distance between China and continental U.S., if you go over the North Pole, I'm going to say, off the top of my head, that's about 7,000 miles or something like that. The concern with a hypersonic missile is that this is something that can travel in the atmosphere. You combine that with stealth technology, and also, by the way, all of the geniuses are working on being able to launch these things from submarines. You can, instead of being able to call up somebody and say, bring, it looks like we've got a launch here. Please explain exactly what that is. We could be looking at a situation where the reaction time goes down to around 2-3 minutes. 2-3 minutes to figure out whether what you think may be an attack is in fact an attack, to either decide whether or not to respond. So that's the concern around hypersonic missiles. In terms of what's happening here,
let me stop you for just a second, Jonty. You worry about the hypersonic missile going that fast. If you couple that technology with nuclear technology, now you got a really fast missile that can blow up the world.
Well, the wonderful thing about mutually assured destruction is that it's actually been very effective at preventing a nuclear war. Because if the United States attacked the Soviet Union back in 1984, the Soviet Union would have retaliated in such a way that it wouldn't be justified to make that attack happen. Now, we still have the so-called nuclear trifecta, which is ICBMs, the traditional nuclear trifecta, ICBMs, nuclear submarines, and aircraft that can carry bombs. Honestly, the aircraft that can carry bombs is becoming less and less relevant as missile technology develops. But anyways, so the concept of a decapitation strike becomes really concerning. Are the Chinese worried that the United States is going to fire 5 or 10 or 25 hypersonic missiles into China that will knock out Beijing, knock out most of the military leadership, knock out most of their ICBMs before they can retaliate? You really want a balance in order for mutually assured destruction to work. You don't want a situation where one side or the other has that advantage. And likewise, could China knock out Washington, D.C. and NORAD and you name it in such a way as to prevent the United States from retaliating in a meaningful way? So the hypersonic missile thing it's a really neat technology. I mean, how cool would it be to be able to hop on a hypersonic plane and take a little trip in the upper atmosphere and make it to Paris in 2 hours? That'd be
2
fantastic.
hours. It'd be like 2 minutes, wouldn't it? You can make it to Paris in 2 minutes if you could figure out how to survive the G-force.
Yeah, and really the big problem with the technology is that you don't have the reaction time to steer the darn things. So you hit a little bump in the atmosphere and you're immediately hundreds of miles off course.
Quick question, John T. I've always been fascinated by the SR-71 spy plane and the way in which they manufactured that airplane so that it could go as fast as it could go by using titanium to keep the plane from just melting. So this hypersonic aircraft is alleged to be going much faster than the SR-71. So I'm just wondering what kind of metal it's being made out of that could fly that fast through the atmosphere, lower atmosphere.
Yeah.
And not burn up.
Yeah, that's an excellent question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. The SR-71 went about Mach 3.2. So, yeah, it would be sub-hypersonic. There isn't sort of one hypersonic technology being developed. Russia has a version. The United States, it's always kind of a little bit hard to tell what's going on with the United States, to be honest. But the U.S. has a couple versions. Yeah, exactly. And then the Chinese have been sort of boasting about their ability to produce a hypersonic missile. The last time they had a big military parade, they had a couple of what looked like hypersonic missiles. There's a lot of speculation as to what their actual capabilities would be. It wouldn't be just one technology. It would be a variety of different countries coming at it from different angles. But I'd certainly try and figure that out before the next time we have one of these conversations.
Well, that's our first thing on the table today is, should we really be worrying about this missile test, or do you think that it's not such a big problem?
Well, according to the article, the second article on the Know Before the Show page on ChinaWatchRadio.com, breathtaking expansion, U.S. Strategic Command Leader expects further revelations of China's nuclear weapons advancement. The missile or spacecraft or whatever orbited the Earth apparently very quickly. Nobody's saying how. I haven't seen anybody say how fast. And it missed, quote unquote, missed its target by 25 miles. Missing your target by 25 miles, if you're using a nuclear weapon, is probably missing your target pretty much entirely. But that's still pretty darn close if it's a rapidly developing technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about nuclear fallout, 25 miles is not that far. I mean, they cleared a lot of stuff out of Chernobyl and out of that part of Fukushima in Japan, a few miles away from that, so that folks wouldn't glow in the dark. So yeah, it would be. Although it is technically a miss at 25 miles, it's not that far off, is it? When you consider how far away it was launched.
Anytime humanity's playing with the possibility of making nuclear war winnable, I just want an adult, to come and take the toys away from all the kids before they hurt themselves.
Well, I don't think it should be that way. I think the kids should take away the toys from the adults, because it's the adults that are playing the games. I remember in junior high school, John T., up in Billings, Montana. This is during, the height, I think, of the Cuban Missile Crisis, or one crisis or another. But they marched all of us junior high kids to the high school football stadium and filled up the stadium with kids to demonstrate what would happen in a nuclear attack. And so there we were, a bunch of kids grab-assing, and the adults, they walked out to the middle of the football field and they spread out a big tarp. And they put a couple of pillows-looking things on the tarp, and then they walked away. And so we kids went back to grab-assing. And then as part of their demonstration, they lit off the explosives that were in these two pillow-shaped things. And a giant roar and a big, huge flash, and then this mushroom cloud rose up from the middle of the football field, and all of us kids were dirtying our pants in fear of what we were seeing right there. And as this mushroom cloud rose higher and higher and higher in the sky, a helicopter came down and landed and disposed of these mannequins all over the field. And then the medics came in and proceeded to pick them up and take them away. And all of this happened right in front of our eyes. And so we all went home and told Mom and Dad, we need to build a bomb shelter. And it's kind of this fear stuff that is driving us all crazy. And so I wonder if that isn't what's in play here.
Well, whenever you end up in an arms race scenario, it's really driven by fear of the other. What's the other person doing?
There you go.
And if we don't do it, they'll do it to us, which is it's not a formula for success in the long run. So there really has to be another angle in which humanity comes at a problem like this. We had the SALT treaties, which were they did so much to de-escalate the situation at the time, from my perspective, and it would really be wonderful for the United States, Russia, and China in particular. Although it should also look at Pakistan, India, France, Israel. I'm not supposed to say that because they're not supposed to have nuclear weapons, and get them all at the table together, and figure out a path forward for humanity which doesn't involve destroying each other.
Well, do you think the COVID-19 virus is a weapon of mass destruction that has been unleashed on the world, or is it just an accident, or is it nothing at all?
I think that's absolutely one of the things that should be discussed at the meeting of the adults.
See, I believe so too.
One of the toys that should be taken away.
I believe so too, but if you're talking about COVID and you're talking about a hypersonic nuclear missile that can arrive in less than 2 minutes from any place on the planet, they're not in the same category as far as I'm concerned. They really aren't.
Yeah, and if you have those weapons, why are you going to talk to anybody?
Well, look, I'm not writing off some of the powers on this planet that we aren't working on stuff like that too, along with other countries.
Yeah, well, there you go. What's next, Billy?
So, we talked about the first two. Then there's China's top leaders set for a key meeting next month. This November meeting will be important for President Xi Jinping to reinforce the official narrative of the party's rule and his leadership status ahead of next year's twice-a-decade National Congress. They hold a little powwow, a little get-together twice every decade. And they're expecting, at least a lot of the world is expecting, that there is the possibility of a major reshuffle in the Chinese Communist Party leadership, I guess is the best way to put it.
Do you think Xi Jinping will survive?
I do.
I don't.
You don't?
No. I don't.
Interesting, because I think, I think it's like in China, it's the same thing as we have here. Once you're in power, you got to really have made giant mistakes with your compatriots to not hold on to the power. And I don't think Xi Jinping's really irritated the rest of the members of the Communist Party enough to get ousted.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the theories...
Go ahead, John T.
Sorry. One of the theories that we've put forward previously on this show is that China may be using economic warfare as a way to destabilize the United States, and that can be part of this whole supply chain debacle, not to mention even the possibility that China could intentionally crash aspects of their own economy, Evergrande, etc., in order to try and stimulate a proportional crash over here. Another possibility here is that the United States can be using economic warfare in order to destabilize China in the run-up to the
meeting.
The meeting in which to decide whether or not Xi Jinping is going to continue.
So is that why, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why you think he might not survive, is because his economy is tanking to the point where...
Yeah, that's correct. I see China's economy collapsing. Now, John D. might have a point. They might be collapsing the economy...
to fight us.
But I don't think so, because Xi Jinping wants another term in office. And to do that, he's really going to have the country behind him, I believe.
Well, he certainly has to have the rest of the Politburo behind him.
And you know what we have to bear in mind? Yeah, what we have to bear in mind here is that periodically the Chinese Communist Party does pogroms in yes. which they take a significant segment of their population and shoot them or whatever. Get rid of them. They just clean the house. So it might be that they're deliberately collapsing the economy to somehow clean the house. But
of all the capitalists.
Yes, and yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's who they're going after right now.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And so it could very well be that this is a purge of the capitalists in China. But in doing so, they are going to destroy their own economy.
Well, the way it's set up right now after 40 years, yeah.
And here's the rub. Before 20 years ago, most all of the Chinese lived in the countryside and on farms, right? Then they all moved into town to work in the factories, to work in the offices. 450 million people moved to town. And so then what became the largest industry in China? Housing. Housing is 1/3 of the Chinese economy.
But it's bankrupt. Or it's going bankrupt.
Yes. Now, let's take a quick look at Evergrande. And folks, if you've not had a chance or an opportunity, I suggest going to YouTube and typing in Evergrande. And then kind of skim through the videos there. And you'll really get a sense of what's going on.
Hundreds and hundreds of completely vacant cement orbs.
60 million.
Yeah.
60 million.
I mean the picture. I mean the videos are hundreds,
yeah.
hundreds of videos of these.
So Evergrande is one of the second biggest builder of housing in China. How big is Evergrande? It's $305 billion in debt and unable to pay the interest on that debt. So the second biggest developer in China is going belly up. And John T's right, the CCP pulled the rug out from under these developers by establishing rules for how much debt they could take on. So with these 3 new red lines in the sand, almost all of the developers in China are going belly up. Almost all of them.
The other thing we have to remember about this is even Chinese banks get very unhappy when you can't meet your debt service. Mm-hmm. When you don't make your interest payments, even Chinese banks get unhappy.
Well, because the debtor owns the banks.
Not only that,
when you borrow $300 billion from a bank, you own that bank.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. But at any rate, many of these huge builders are going belly up. So what's going to happen? If they do go belly up, who's going to take over the property? Well, here in the West, if somebody goes belly up, you divide up the goods and distribute it to the equity and bondholders, and that's that. In China, the CCP owns the buildings. Mm-hmm. So in effect, the CCP is gaining access to all of these properties.
But it's also eating the debt service.
No, it's not. It's belly up.
Well,
they just write off the debt.
Well, of course they write off the debt, but now they have. Look, when you own you know this. When you own a building, you own a house or you own an apartment complex, there's all kind of costs that are incurred by that building every year. Mm-hmm. Even in China.
That's
so,
true.
they got to, China gets very cold in the wintertime.
So what are you going to do with all these buildings? It's a good question.
Yeah, exactly.
So Evergrande is toast, trying to sell its assets to pay off its debt, can't sell it. A bunch of deals are going through. So why is this significant? Well, housing, as I said, is 30% of the Chinese economy. And that Chinese housing is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $93 trillion. $93 trillion. Now, if this is truly going belly up, it's going to have a major impact on everybody. Now, right now, when you buy a house or a dwelling in China, you don't really buy it. You just buy the right to use it for 70 years.
It's a 70-year lease.
It's a 70-year lease is what you're buying. There are 60 million empty dwelling units in China. 60 million. 90% of them are owned by Chinese people. 90% of those 60 million empty housing units.
And if you're really good at math, you'll go, well, how can that be based on the population and all that? Well, basically what they use housing for in many, many cases is its dowry.
That's
because
right.
Because of the situation in China where they had one child and everybody chose to have male children instead of a mix, the female people who are available to be married need incentive. In other words, they're wooed by a whole bunch of men who are going for a limited amount of women, and in order to show that they're worthy of being married to the shortage of women, they amass dowries of property.
Mm-hmm. And the more housing units you own,
the better you look.
The more handsome you are.
That's right.
But so that's one of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons why you see so many vacant dwellings. They've been built and they're being used right now as dowry.
Yes, as a way of storing wealth.
That's right.
It's a savings account. Why don't they take the money to the bank? Well, they know that money in the bank can be taken and disposed of in a second.
Ask Jack Ma what happened when he took his money to the bank.
Right. So real estate was the only thing that was the only place to put money. It's your savings account.
Right.
It's it. And now it ain't. And so watch the real estate market in China because it's going to have a major impact on China's economy, one way or another, and probably ours as well.
So we started this conversation and it ended up around the property market in China. But remember now, China's top leaders are set for the key meeting. That'll be next month. And one of the things that they're really talking about in this whole thing is the fact that Xi Jinping appears to be trying to consolidate his power. There are several discussions about this, one of which you'll read if you go to our show notes page on the website, ChinaWatchRadio.com. You'll find out that there is a professor of modern Chinese history and politics at the University of Oxford that says that the leadership is trying to create a seamless narrative for the last 100 years in China, so that it will appear as though there is steady progress in all aspects of how the Communist Party is running China. And this may be an attempt to create the impression of smooth progression from the founding of the party to the present day without going into any kind of bad news. And so I thought I'd bring that up because it depends on how you view the current chairman of the Communist Party in China. Some people refer to him as the president, but he's really the chairman of the Communist Party.
Well, you know, there's really two pronounced political factions in the Chinese Communist Party. One was from the previous premier, and the other is from the current premier. And they both have their henchmen lined up against each other. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out.
Right, exactly. We did talk about Evergrande making the fact that they made an offshore coupon payment on their interest debt, but they're not.
I'm
paying
not sure
off.
they did. They tried to. They tried to. I think it fell through today.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
so let's explain that really quickly. Evergrande has defaulted on 3 bond payments so far,
and it's if you think there's some companies in this country who've defaulted, they have never defaulted like this company in China has.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay you like that.
Yeah.
So there are 2 kinds of creditors: domestic creditors and foreign creditors. The domestic creditors are those who have actually purchased housing units that won't be built for 3 or 4 years down the road. They've given Evergrande the money, and Evergrande used it to have a good time, just like notorious scam artists of our country. You know, you take the money from Peter and pay Paul and use the
Ponzi scheme. Yeah.
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, it's a giant land Ponzi scheme. It really is.
Yep. So missed payment to 2 different kinds of creditors. One is the domestic, and 2 are the 2 were to foreign bondholders. So who cares about those bondholders? They're not here anyway. But that they did not pay their domestic bondholders or the domestic creditors is very interesting and very indicative of the fact that they don't have any money. I mean, if you're not paying your neighbor, I could see not paying the guy from New York City, but if you're not paying your neighbor,
you know,
Right.
it's a very good point.
They were sorry, Billy. They were relying on continued real estate sales to give themselves liquidity. So they were building a bunch of houses and selling them, and that was how they were getting the money to pay off of the loans that they've taken out, or at least to keep the loans serviced.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And I'm looking at right here the headline saying that their real estate sales plunged 97% during peak home buying season. That they're currently looking at about 571 million in sales from the period September 1st to October 20th. Whereas last year that was, I have to do math because now I'm trying to convert won into dollars. That was more in the range of about 5 billion.
there you go. Massive collapse in the real estate industry. Now, imagine if you're a Chinese citizen. You know, you're working in an office, and all of a sudden, all of the money that you have collected and saved, and that your family has given you, because you know you're their one hope.
Well. They want you to marry well.
Yeah. So they've taken all of their money and all of your money, and you've used it to buy 3 dwelling units, and now they're all worth nothing
in receivership, basically, or not even built yet.
Just to return to what Billy was saying earlier, I looked this up while we were talking. There are 120 men for every 100 women.
That's a huge deficit, by the way. Anybody could do that math. If you stand everybody in a room and you know, it's literally the basketball, picking the teams after you're 20 short.
Yep.
So that those properties aren't just the investment in the well-being of your family, it's also an investment in the next generation.
Correct.
Correct.
For 20 out of 100 men, there won't be a next generation if they aren't able to demonstrate some kind of meaningful status.
So that entire food chain is gone.
Yes.
It's gone.
Yes. Yeah.
So what is Xi Jinping thinking? I mean, if I'm
here's my thought. And Jonty, jump in here anytime, because you know more about this sort of stuff than I do. But I own a house, and I make payments on time, and I
like to say the house owns me.
Yeah, well, I just pay rent to the bank. The bank
Right.
currently owns the house. But anyway, I make my payments on time, and I make sure the insurance is paid, and I make sure the water, all that stuff happens, right? So I'm thinking, if I'm Xi Jinping, and I got all these people starting to get kind of mad at me.
1.5 billion pissed off Chinese.
Yeah, really kind of getting kind of angry with me. I would try to work up some kind of a program, or at least some kind of a narrative to try to help these people not kill me. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but it's like he's made a bad deal with the mafia.
So he's going into this meeting next year.
Yeah.
All right. As we speak, the entire housing bubble is popping.
Yeah, it's
60
imploding.
million empty housing units are worth nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we do have scenarios here in the U.S. where one political party will intentionally sabotage the country in order to rig the elections for the against the other political party. So one possibility is that he's somewhat lost control of the situation. That he's sort of saying, "Please, can we fix this?" And his guys are trying to get it fixed, but the folks pulling the strings are in the opposing party.
That could very well be, but Xi Jinping is the one who put those 3 red lines in the sand.
Well, remember now, though, we talked in the past programs about how the Politburo works, how the Chinese Communist Party operates, and it's basically the mafia.
But yeah.
Well, now he could turn around and say, this is corruption, and I have to weed out the corruption so this doesn't happen. And he'll have a bunch of really pissed off, homeowners or former homeowners
that would be a Chairman Mao trick, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
That would be, okay, so what you do is you collapse the economy and say we have to hold those responsible for this.
For being capitalists.
For being capitalists, yeah. This is...
Well, that's one way.
Boy, if that's
has
the
worked
case,
in the past.
If that's the case, by next year's meeting, there will be a mass cleansing of the Chinese economy.
Not only that, I would think a fairly substantial cleansing of the leadership. People that don't agree with
absolutely.
Yeah, they're gone.
So, all of those in the Jiang Zemin faction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Woo.
Wow.
Or maybe it's the Xi Jinping faction. I don't know. But the economy is collapsing as we speak. But that's not all that's going on. That's not all that's collapsing.
Oh, no, not at all. No, there's a bunch of other stuff happening. For instance, well, how do I put this? Bloomberg is a fairly well-respected, worldwide known publication. Bloomberg quashed a story over fear of retribution from China. The Bloomberg News reportedly killed an article investigating the Communist Party elites in China 6 years ago, fearing the report would hurt that company's business in China.
Have you ever done a Google search on Bloomberg plus China? if you were to do that, what you would find is that Mike Bloomberg makes gazillions of dollars by his financial reporting on the Chinese economy, on rating bonds and stuff like that. So he is one of those business people that might be targeted. I don't know.
Well, he sells a sort of a kiosk that can be used for trading, by my understanding,
right.
And
Yes,
that's actually
exactly
where the majority of his money comes from. Now, I'm also very interested in the situation going on with regards to the coal from Australia. China, as we were discussing yesterday.
But when you're talking coal, you're not really talking coal. You're talking electricity.
Well,
and steel.
Let's get into that one for a minute, John T. I'm glad you brought that up. China right now has had a dispute with Australia about purchasing coal from Australia. They have impounded several huge amounts in tonnage of coal along one of China's seaboard areas.
Sitting in ships off the China coast.
And in warehouses.
And in the ports, right? Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So China is now releasing Australian coal from bonded storage. That's what they call it. They call it bonded storage. That means we got the coal, but we're not going to use it because we're not going to pay you for it. And we're not going to pay you for it. Okay? So the reason that they're beginning to use the coal and pulling the coal out of bondage.
Wait a minute. Why did they do that? Because they had
a big trade disagreement with Australia.
It wasn't a trade disagreement.
Yeah, I'd call it political.
It was a political disagreement over the origin of COVID. When COVID came out, Australia demanded an open scientific investigation of its origin.
Right.
And what did Xi Jinping say? We're not buying your coal anymore.
Yeah, that's right. But lots of coal is already there, and it's both on and offshore. But it's in bondage right now. Okay, so China has a couple of problems that are exacerbating the need for Australian coal. One of them is they have a huge. If you think PG&E has got problems, nothing like China. China has a huge power distribution problem. They're rotating power outages all the time in China, and this is because the coal mines in China, many of them are currently flooded.
Underwater.
They're underwater. They cannot pull coal out of there. And most of the power plants in China are coal-fired power plants. So they have this huge electrical problem right now in China.
And it's winter.
Yeah, it's
winter's
cold.
Coming on.
Yeah, and if you think you see these reports of poor guys with snow shovels in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that's cold. But there are parts of China that are just bitterly cold.
Yeah, Manchuria is like Montana. So here's another issue now. If they don't get enough coal to warm up people's houses. And, the way people stay warm in the winter in traditional China was via a kong. You know what a kong is? It's a bed in which you have a coal furnace.
Oh, yeah. Right. Exactly.
So you burn coal in your bed, underneath your bed, and that coal burning underneath your bed warms your mattress and keeps you warm all night, despite of how cold it is outside.
I recall when I was in Beijing in 1998, that was how everybody was making their tea and keeping the house warm. It was these little circular briquettes of coal. Now, my understanding is that's changed dramatically over the last 23 years. But that said, China is by far the largest coal-using country in the world. All of their industry depends on it as well. So we have these discussions about businesses leaving China. How about businesses in China not even being able to turn their factories on, power their factories
That's
up?
right. That is, in fact, you hit the nail on the head there, Jonty, and that is the major reason why China is sort of backing off from his indignation of, with Australia, because they really need the coal.
So remember last week how we were talking about how China values face?
Yes.
How important face is for China. So look at how much face Xi Jinping is losing.
That's right.
By having to resort to buying Australian coal.
After saying he didn't want to, and
so
we're not buying it.
Now we have all kind of bleep hitting the fan in China. And next year, the Chinese Communist Party is going to sit down.
Next month?
Is it next month?
It's in November.
Well, not the Congress. The Congress isn't happening till next year. This is just a warm-up meeting.
The preliminary meeting.
Okay, but the preliminary meeting is going to portend what happens. You guys know that, right?
Yeah, sure, that's probably it. But I don't know, because it depends on how far things fall apart before this meeting. I mean, they might have a meeting next month, and things are kind of hanging together, and but by next year, if they don't pull out of this this mess that they're in,
yeah.
Well, so that should be our question for next hour. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to have to go to our commercial break in a few minutes here. I do want to tell you, just let me lay some numbers on you here about coal, okay? To ease the supply strain, China State Railway Group pledged on Tuesday to allot more freight capacity to ensure coal inventories are sufficient for 14 days of use. 14 days of use. Now, here's why that seems like not very much. 14 days of use at 363 coal-fired power plants. 363 coal-fired.
And you wonder why the skies of Beijing are so dirty?
That's right.
Right.
There you go.
And you know where that smoke goes eventually?
Well, New York City.
Yeah, it blows right across the ocean to us.
It does.
Yeah.
There's 47% of the global coal consumption.
One country burns 47% of all the coal in the world.
And so I interviewed the California Secretary of Agriculture, and she's talking about climate change, and I said, excuse me, what blows my mind about us is that we chase all of our industry away because it's dirty. And then we run down to the big box store and buy made in China because it's cheap.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing that look, we've had all these laws recently passed. We're going to get rid of gas-powered little engines and all that other stuff, right? We have destroyed the diesel engine thing. Just about everybody has to buy these diesel engines that are almost impossible to maintain. Okay. We have decided that after a certain point in a couple of years, we're only going to sell electric cars in California, right? Now, let me tell you something. Look at the power grid in California, and we're going to have to add power plants. There's no question about it. Just do the math, okay? If everybody's car is going to get plugged in at 5 o'clock at night so they can go to work the next day, got to have some more electricity. Guess what? Here's my prediction. If you think China's got a problem with 363 coal-powered power plants, what are we going to? There's not enough room in California for all those windmills. So what we're going to end up doing is building either nuclear power plants or coal power plants.
Okay, so let's challenge our audience, because we're going to have to take a break. So let's challenge the audience. We've laid some issues on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think Xi Jinping is going to survive next year? I don't think so, but that's just me. What do you think? 831-479-1080. Boy, let's
We'll
go to
war
here.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Satisfy your hunger right now with a delicious ramen and sushi waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Mow, dig, haul, lift. The versatile Kubota BX Series subcompact tractor does it all. Switching attachments is simple, and a smooth hydrostatic transmission makes for easy operation. The Kubota BX Series, the #1 selling subcompact tractor in the U.S. for over 10 years. Talk to your local Kubota dealer today to schedule a demo. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
C&N Tractors in Watsonville and Paso Robles makes it so easy to get a Kubota. Give us your tough jobs.
Hi, I'm Deidre Bennett, and I am the owner of Zinnia's Gift Boutique in Scotts Valley, California. Zinnia's is an experience. It's not just about coming in to shop. It's about coming in to browse with your cup of coffee or your tea from next door. It's about someplace to come to put a smile on your face when maybe you need a little warming. It's a friendly place just to say hi. No one is on commission in our store. It's about coming in and being in a community. And the community supports me, and my cup runneth over at how supported I am. And so I want to give that support back to all of our community members and our customers. We've got local artists that do our jewelry. We've got things from third world countries. We've got gifts for men. And most of it we try to source locally. Zinnia's is located at 219C Mount Herman Road in the Graham Plaza next to Starbucks. Our number is 831-430-9466. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at zinniasgiftboutique.com.
I'm Jim Chubb with Pacific Inland. Our NMLS 361091. If you're interested in buying or refinancing, I suggest you take advantage of my reliable expert advice. I'm at 818-7700. I help you make informed mortgage choices with zero selling. See my Sunday column in the Sentinel. We have a 30-year fixed at 3.375 APR with no closing costs. Some restrictions apply. Call me, 818-7700 for individual pricing. That's 818-7700.
A collapsing economy.
Will Xi Jinping survive a collapsing economy? That's what we're going to ask you in the second hour. We do have some callers who've come on the board here. We don't really have enough time to do anybody justice, so I'm going to ask Bob and Bill to hang on through the break if they would, or at least call us back after the news and tell us if we put out enough topics in the news to get it done. This is China Watch Radio. Go to ChinaWatchRadio.com, and we have another hour of our program, so stay with us on KSCO Santa Cruz.
Central Coast forecast for this afternoon. A 20% chance of rain, mostly cloudy otherwise, with a steady temperature around 63. We're beating that right now. And a west wind around 8 miles per hour. Right now, outside the KSCO studios, it is 65 degrees. KSCO News Talk time now, 3:06, time for the second hour of China Watch Radio.
China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! Welcome to hour number 2 of China Watch Radio on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff, along with Jonty McCollier and Michael Olson, and we're talking about all the issues, well, many of the issues that are being faced by the country of China right now. We have listed all of these on our website, ChinaWatchRadio.com. We urge you to go there and check out the list. The list actually, by the way, we have 3 callers who are waiting, Bill, Bob, and Arthur. Hang on, we're going to get your call in just a moment. I'm going to recap for those of us, our audience who are just now joining us. And China denies reports that it tested a hypersonic missile.
They're shooting missiles. Isn't that a good indication that they're afraid of something?
Either that or they want to perfect missiles. Breathtaking expansion. The United States Strategic Command leader expects further revelations of China's nuclear weapons advancement. China's top leaders are going to have a key meeting next month.
And that's the key thing that we want to focus on, I think, in the second hour when we ask our audience. Do you think Xi Jinping will survive? Or do you think the opposition, perhaps it's Jiang Zemin's faction, will survive? And what's going to become of a Chinese economy that collapses? And do you think the collapse of China's economy would or would not affect ours? What do you think out there? 831-479-1080. Let's go to war, Billy.
All right. Those are just some of the things. Oh, and then also we're talking about the fact that China has a trade problem with Australia, but they're not really going to save too much face because now they're having to renege on...
they're going to have to buy Australian coal.
Yeah, they're going to have to buy Australian coal because they just can't fire their own power plants
And
anymore.
you know what's happening to the price of coal?
Oh, it's
through the roof.
Sure. Everybody who produces coal now knows China doesn't have enough of it. It's like what happens when OPEC did its thing for a while. All right, so let's take our longest call first. That would be Bill. Bill is calling us from Santa Cruz. Bill, you're on China Watch Radio. Thanks for being with us.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. This show is always really great, informational. I was just wondering about the prospect if China basically kind of goes bankrupt or, has really terrible economic problems. Might they strike out at another country to either, try to get their assets or go to war with somebody to, say, distract the population or who knows what? But I just wondered what your opinion on that might be.
That's an excellent point.
Excellent question, by the way.
Because what happens when a leader, when a country's leadership finds itself up against the wall and things aren't working too well? That's exactly what happened to Argentina. And what did Argentina decide to do? Well, it decided to pick on Great Britain and fight for the Falkland Islands, yeah.
Or the Malvinas.
Islas Malvinas, yeah. So it's the natural thing to do. What happened to when Bill Clinton got into trouble with Monica Lewinsky? What did he do? He shot a bunch of missiles into an aspirin factory or a baby milk factory or something like that. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So when you get into trouble, the best thing to do is, a false direction. You do something over on the other side so that people don't watch
misdirection,
you. Misdirection. Yeah.
So what do you think, Jonty?
I think that it's definitely a theory that's worth looking into. Though everybody tends to point at the situation with Taiwan and say, is China going to invade Taiwan? And that's just not that easy of a thing to do. It's real tough. Taiwan is one tough cookie. They've got a mandatory service requirement. They have got they could realistically field about 1.5 million reservists.
Are they like Switzerland?
Yes.
They're like Switzerland, aren't they?
They're very well armed, and they can also bring China a lot of hurt. I was listening to the geopolitical analyst Peter Zion the other day, somebody that I find quite interesting, and he pointed out that with China's advanced economy, if they were aware of a massive Chinese mobilization to invade their island, they, in a matter of a relatively short period of time, could probably whip together a nuclear weapon.
If they don't have one already.
Yeah. That's a more likely scenario to me.
Yeah.
So Bill, you've asked a very good question.
What do you think?
Gosh, I have really no idea. I just thought it was an interesting question. And if you look back at, say, previous world wars, it looks like some of them have that element included in their, like aggression towards other countries and natural resources and all of the above. So I'm really not an expert in that area, but I thought you guys would have a great response and a great idea. So thank you.
Yeah, and if we look carefully at the belligerence, the recent belligerence of China.
Oh, yeah.
The wolf diplomacy, as exhibited by the meeting in Alaska between the Chinese diplomats and the American diplomats, and the Chinese diplomats looked at the American diplomats and said, "You guys are so out of it. You don't even have the grounds to speak to us."
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not qualified to speak to. I think was the exact phrase.
So, when you look at the belligerence being put forth, who is the belligerence really for?
Yeah.
Are
they trying to save face?
I think the belligerence is all about marshaling the support of the Chinese people.
Exactly. So yes, the answer is they are trying to save face with their own people, obviously. Hey, Bill, thank you for the call. We greatly appreciate you calling.
Good call.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk to Bob in Scotts Valley. Bob, you're on China Watch Radio.
Hey, well, I do have something to say about China. I don't have too much time, so I'll make this as quickly as possible. My wife, probably about 10 years ago, a company called her. They tracked her down. Her father had purchased mineral rights in the state of Illinois, several acres. And so a company who was interested in mining coal in that state of Illinois contacted her, and it was quite a problem for them to even find out her name, et cetera, et cetera. Dad had purchased these mineral rights like for $1 an acre back in the 20s, I think it was. Anyway, what happened was an investor from San Francisco financed a situation to where they sunk a shaft, and then they had a huge machine that was 1,200 feet long. And what they did, this machine had a rotor in the front, and imagine moving 1,200 feet long. It moved along slowly, mining the coal. As it moved along, the farmer's acreage on top dropped down 6 feet. Okay? So they took all of this coal out, and my wife and I, we were practically counting our dollars that we were going to be getting for this operation. Well, what happened is they ceased operation. They had 1 million tons of coal on the surface that was destined for China. And so something happened 3 years ago to whereby they covered the coal with plastic. And there's 1 million tons on the surface there in the state of Illinois, and the coal is not being shipped to China.
Well,
so I just thought I'd bring that up. It's an interesting...
That's a very interesting observation, and I can back that up to a certain extent because coming from Montana, I'm used to seeing coal trains miles long heading for the coast or China, and all of a sudden they stopped.
Yeah.
And they're shutting down the coal fields in Montana and Wyoming. And nobody's mining coal anymore. Now, is this because of an environmental concern? Or is this a political thing? I don't know. But all of a sudden, we, meaning the United States, have not been selling coal to China. It's been Australia that's been selling coal to China.
So, Bob, did you and the wife lose a huge investment because of this?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Because this company was backed by a money guy in San Francisco. He's the one that put the millions and millions and millions of dollars into this project. And so, like I say, the coal is on the surface, 1 million tons, and it's covered with plastic. And so,
and good luck on finding a place to use that coal in the United States, because if you were to light a coal fire to warm your bed in the winter, the Environmental Protection Agency would have you in jail.
Well,
or something like that.
Right.
Something similar.
I found this whole idea of how they mine the coal interesting, because I'm from the state of Pennsylvania, and as a kid, I actually worked in a coal mine, and I know a little bit about mining. But this whole different concept of how they're mining, imagine a machine 1,200 feet long, taking out all of that coal at once, and as it takes the coal out, the farmer's land above drops down 6 feet. And this was a huge, huge operation that was taking place back there in that state of Illinois.
You know, if you ever have the opportunity to do a YouTube search for China industry, and you see some of the steel factories and the industrial-sized factories that China makes, and you look at how they're firing these factories with coal, and you see the equipment that they're using to move the coal, and boy, then you can understand how they were doing what they were doing to your fields. They have big equipment.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge, and they're, not only do they have huge, large equipment, but they also have a huge, large investment in all of that as well. Bob, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
831-479-1080.
All right, let's move on to Arthur.
Sorry, Bill. This here, Arthur.
I
do have something quick to say. I just want to say, just imagine Australia's perspective in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
There, one of the first things that happened prior to the coal was that China put the freeze on lobster shipments. And it was just really an insulting thing to do. They ship all these amazing Australian lobsters up there, and they ended up just rotting.
Oh, don't tell me that. Really?
No, I mean, that upsets me more than the coal. All that wonderful lobster could have come here. And now they've got that sort of CCP official from that university going on Australian TV and saying, well, since you guys are going to build U.S. submarines, you have now opened yourselves up for nuclear strike. You are now a target for nuclear strike. I mean, it's not like the rhetoric is toned down. And by the way, India is suffering from a major coal shortage at this point in time as well. So if you're Australia, I mean, where are you going to send your coal? Are you going to sit there and wait patiently for China to play fair, or are you going to say, well, there's other folks who want this stuff too, so maybe we'll send it there.
And the price of coal is through the roof everywhere.
It's just looking that up. It's about $230 per metric ton.
Yep. That's a lot of money for coal.
That is a lot of money for coal, but think of, a ton of coal heats a lot of stuff. I mean, you can run that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy. Yeah. Not very clean, but a lot of energy. By the way, the other thing about coal before we move on and take some more calls, if you do
at 831-479-1080.
If you do your research on how coal is used, in most places in the world, the local equivalent of the Environmental Protection Agency has mandated how you use coal so that it's not quite as dirty. But none of that technology is even bothered to be installed in China. That's why China has such dirty power plants.
Now, Billy, when I researched that, I found articles saying that China's new coal plants are actually the high efficiency coal plants.
No, I understand that. But when you're talking about, look, they have 363 coal-fired power plants in China. Not all of them are any close to being new. Only a small percentage of them are new. So all those old coal-fired power plants have not, at least the article I read, have not been retrofitted with the new, cleaner technology. So they are quite a polluter. Let me just put it that way.
No, we're the polluter because we send them our money to pollute. That's what we do, right. Billy. We send them our money so that they will make our widgets for us.
Yeah.
And those widget-making machines are powered by electricity generated by coal. So we are the ones who are making the mess. So it's us.
So they're coal-fired iPhones.
There you go. That's right. That's exactly right.
When you think about it, yeah. All right, let's go on to Arthur in Prunedale if I push the right button here. Arthur, you're on China Watch Radio.
You did. Hi, Bill. Hi, Michael. How's Shanti? You guys are doing a great job. This is one of the most informative programs that you're presenting today that I've heard on China, and you've done a lot on energy. You're very well versed. You asked about Xi Jinping. I think Xi Jinping is going to be around, and I want to tell you why.
Oh, good.
It's a very authoritative country. Did you ever think Stalin would be removed from office? No, why not? He ruled with an iron fist. They have a committee. He was the head of it. This is what's going to be going on in China. You can dislike the man as much as you want, as much as Stalin was disliked, but he's going to stay in control. So we'll see in a year or two how my prediction works out. That'll be interesting.
It's a very astute observation, and Xi Jinping himself has admitted to being a very loyal fan of Chairman Mao Zedong. And,
okay, there you go.
And the way Mao worked was that he just had periodic pogroms in which he got rid of his opposition.
Yeah, he eliminated the competition.
He just killed everybody. Yeah.
And Arthur, I happen to agree with you. I don't think Xi Jinping's going anywhere.
Okay, can I continue, guys?
Sure.
Okay. Do you mind? Okay. I don't know if you were listening to the news at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. They talked about China is restricting air travel within their country because of a new COVID outbreak. Now, isn't it interesting? They jumped right on restricting travel within their country. But back in 2019, when my cousin, who worked in New York City, contracted COVID before we even knew there was such a thing in this country. When she went to the hospital, they thought she had the flu. It was only a month later that they called her back in for a test in January 2020. And found out, oh, no, you have this new disease called COVID. Before President Trump suggested restricting travel, all that time, 6 months, 9 months before we knew about it, that was being spread around the world.
Well,
and Dr. Fauci invested some of our money in that program.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Now, the interesting thing about what happened when the world finally woke up to the fact that there was a COVID epidemic going on in Wuhan, what did the Chinese do? They shut down domestic air travel and allowed international air travel. So, in effect, they stopped the disease from spreading in China and allowed it to spread throughout the world.
And the current, what Arthur brought up is what the newscast brought up. This lockdown, travel ban, is in 5 provinces all at once. They just, no more travel.
So
thank you, Bill.
So with this new, I guess what they're saying is that there's a new COVID in town. Is that what we're hearing?
Well, they're not operating the way we are in the West, where we're vaccinating people and giving everybody shots. How they're controlling it is they're just stopping travel in 5 provinces. It'd be like saying in 5 states in the United States, sorry, you stay home now. You're not going anywhere.
Well, China does have a vaccine, and they are attempting to vaccinate their population.
No, I understand that, but the immediate way they're taking care of it is they're just saying you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, another immediate way that they take care of it is to sweep it under the rug, in my opinion. We got some very spurious numbers out of China with regards to the outbreak in Wuhan, and the idea that 4,000 people in China total have died from this is kind of comical given the nature of the disease. It just doesn't fit. And even if just to go look at some graphs and charts and stuff of their numbers, it's like the deaths go up, 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 and then absolutely stop. I mean, do you believe that within mainland China they did such a great job of controlling it that there have been 6 deaths in the past 8 months?
No.
That doesn't seem realistic to me. So, you have to take the numbers that they present us with a grain of salt as well.
Well, I don't trust what anybody says about this stuff.
Well,
especially our folks, I don't trust. Fauci and the crew, don't trust them a bit.
Well, I hope you're not doing your own research, guys, because that's very dangerous to do your own research. It's a threat to your health.
Arthur, we appreciate the call. Thank you. Anything else?
I just want to say, Michael, you were right on, especially in your last few comments. Dr. so-called Fauci has played a tremendously detrimental role to the lives of 600,000 or 700,000 people just in our country, let alone around the world, by getting us involved. He's a Democrat sympathizer, if not a member of the Democrat Party. I wouldn't be surprised if this was all taking place in order to get rid of President Trump so that they could take over and go more in line with their policies. So thank you, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Thanks for calling. We appreciate it. Lots of folks want to talk to us. Let's go to Sean in Melbourne, Australia. If I push the right button. Sean, is that you?
No, Shane, mate. How you going?
Oh, Shane, I'm sorry. They wrote down Sean, but I can't read anyway, so it doesn't matter. How you doing?
Look,
Have we got any of this? Have we got any of this Australia stuff we've been talking about correct from your point of view?
Well, look, we've just come out of lockdown, been the longest lockdown place in the world, I think, and today they've released that we can actually come out and the lockdown's actually finished. So that's been quite an incredible psychological problem for many people in our state. And that's my field. I work in my field. But you were mentioning China and the aspects of China, and I would like to draw your attention in history. If we look at the Boxer Revolution,
there you go.
When the Chinese were fighting for their independence, and they lost that war, and then if we only look back in 1941, only 80 years ago, the Chinese were our allies, and we were actually giving them weaponry, and also the Russians. And I find it fascinating that the human being sure does change in only a short period of time, and I just wish you could get over it and work as a unified species to make a better world for the new generations that are coming up in a system all over the world that doesn't seem to be really looking after them.
What you brought up was very interesting with respect to the Boxer Rebellion, which is also known as the Opium Wars, correct? From 1839 to 1890, France and Great Britain forced their way into China with big guns and big bullets and forced the Chinese to accept opium. 15 million people in 1890 were hooked on opium. Wow. And think of the humiliation of the Chinese for that Opium War. I mean, China is a 9,000-year-old country. It's got a long memory. And the humiliation they suffered in the Opium Wars, I think, is becoming our turn now. Because what we're faced with is a fentanyl epidemic in our country that's wreaking havoc on our citizens. Police in San Francisco just confiscated 12.5 pounds of fentanyl. And at 2 milligrams per lethal dose. That's the San Francisco Chronicle reports that that's enough to kill 2.8 million people.
Wow.
So the humiliation of those opium wars is now on our doorstep.
Yep. So
it was a great move.
Do you have a drug problem like this in Australia?
Oh, look, thanks for that, Michael. That was very good with your history. I didn't really know a bit about that. But, yeah, look, I've been working mental health in Victoria for 23 years, and I've been a public advocate working against the foreign corporatised state government that would rather give people high-dose drugs and good nutrition and just proper care when they're having a bit of a crisis in their life. And our chief psychiatrist in 2015, and you've got to imagine our media is pretty well covered too. This was in only page 6 of only one of our newspapers, and no other media covered it. But in 2015, who I represent, 355 people they accepted went into their psychiatric care and died violently, unexpectedly or unnaturally. Now, for many years I've been trying to help these poor people because they are being tortured in there, and I call it a modern concentration camp. But it's foreign controlled, and the Chinese, I don't want to really hassle any race actually, but there is some really serious problems in regards to our cultural integrity of raising a generation free from the incorporation of what I'd call modern Pavlovian conditioning, where they're being groomed with gaming machines, mobile phones, then the drug problem. In 2017, we had a good scientific team by our federal government, and they did analytical studies of 50% of the sewerage, and they found that 8.4 tonnes of pure ice was used by Australian citizens in just that year. And for a small population, nearly the size of New York State, you can imagine that it's mainly going into the tradies and all that sort of stuff there, but that's not cut too. If it was cut, you could probably cut it, from my understanding, about 15 more times with other chemicals. And then the conveyor belt is that when these people get into this, when they really need nutrition and hydration, because they're being conditioned to go about that way through the movies and the different conditioning, then when their brains become undone and their bodies start biologically disintegrating, then we can put them on psych drugs until they, totally fade away. And I find the whole incorporation quite abhorrent for our forefathers, both you Yanks and us and other allies only 80 years ago. And I'd just like to remind you, blokes, if you're interested, the first Nazi defeat in World War II was occurring right now, and it was occurring in a place called Tobruk, and that siege was mainly run by Australians, and we just stopped them from getting the oil in the Suez Canal in that war, which actually starved them from the oil. So I just wanted you to remind you that 8 months before Pearl Harbor...
And I have something to remind you of, too, because my father was down there taking part in a battle that had a significant impact on Australia as well. And it was called the Battle of the Coral Sea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a long history of being friends with Australia, for sure.
Yeah, we do.
I thank you guys too. I do represent the Australian people, and I thank you guys. The Japanese were going to kill every one of us and enslave us, all our women, and destroy us. I had some Japanese money that was already made by the Japanese, because when my grandfather was wounded in Tobruk, the 9th Division went on to help the you blokes, the Yanks, to clean the Japanese out of all the islands, and they were finding these huge amounts of caches of money, and it was all made with the emperor on it, and it was Australian currency made by the Japanese imperial forces.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Hey, thank you for the call all the way from Melbourne. We appreciate it.
Love you, blokes.
Love you too.
Take care. That's
he's one of my favorite callers.
He is one of my favorite callers too, because he's really trying to help the people, his own people down there, and he understands that China is messing with Australia.
Now, I wonder how China deals with drug addiction and illicit drug sales. Wonder what they do. Well, because I don't see. In all my looking and watching, I don't see.
I had a discussion with my father. Now, remember, my father was born in 1932, and he was in school when all this stuff was happening. And he told a story to my brother and I that China tried, when they got the British out of there and the war ended, then they sent an edict out to the citizenry that will help you get cleaned up. We'll help you get cleaned up one time. And if you don't get cleaned up or you have a relapse or whatever, you might disappear.
It's just interesting. I guess that's something that we really need to look into is the impact of drugs in China.
Now, that's the story my dad got as a kid, and I don't know if that was filtered through the press and how they do things. But he said that story was widespread in where he grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area about the fact that, the Chinese cleaned themselves up, but they were given one chance by the government. The government helped them get clean and everything. And then if they had a relapse or it didn't work, then the alternative was not pleasant.
Yeah, and you can see the impact of our opioid addiction on the streets of almost every city because those opioids and the meth.
Yeah.
And these drugs have been industrialized.
Yes. And these drugs do so much damage.
Yep.
I mean,
when you talk about this whole idea of China's century of humiliation and how the trade, particularly of fentanyl, coming from being manufactured in China, somehow making it to Mexico, and then coming across the border in cooperation with the cartels, in order to enact a century of humiliation for the United States. But one of the things that occurs to me, and isn't this just a major problem with the way that people conceive of other people in general, is this sort of tribal mentality where you did this to our people, so we're going to do it back to you. But I don't know about any of you, but I never fought in the Boxer rebellion wars. I never sold opium to China. And
you didn't have any slaves, did you, either?
No, I never have. Exactly, I never have. And it's also it's a real shame that a person would say something like, "Well, we have to pay better attention to the music from these people or those people or something." I was just thinking about this. I love Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms. I also love Tamani Jabete from Central Africa. I love a band called Jaluka from South Africa. I love Indian sitar music. I love erhu music from China. It's beautiful stuff. I love Mongolian throat singing. These are my traditions as a human being. And it's so silly to me that we have this tribal attitude about it where we don't want your history here. We want our history here. It's like, who is our history? We all have the same damn history, guys. Because we're the same thing. And if they're humiliating us, they're also humiliating themselves.
But wait a minute, we just learned from Billy how China is working to create a seamless narrative of history.
Yes.
So it goes, who's our next caller?
Well, our next caller would be, who is that? That is Steve in Pacific Grove. Now, Steve, you're on China.
Hey, guys.
How you doing,
Hey,
Steve?
Aussie, oi, oi, oi. You got to love that guy. That's a hard act to follow. what I was going to ask you guys about is the Sino vaccine. I mean,
Sinovac?
Over here, yeah, they're pushing it so much here. I guess they put a whole bunch in the Philippines and other places and got a lot of people sick.
Yeah, they did actually.
The Sinovac?
Yeah, it's a Sinovac. It's a Sino being China. It's a Chinese vaccine. And
there are reports. A lot of people did get sick in the Philippines.
Yeah, and Brazil was another case. Brazil took a lot of the Sinovac vaccine, and I think a lot of countries took it at a time when there wasn't a lot of Moderna or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson or something like that. I don't know. Do you know what?
I'm not going anti-vax on you guys. I'm just saying with these guys, they give you the crud. Then they send the crud medicine that's cruddier than the crud.
There you go.
You know, I'm just. Have you followed these guys as far as the Sinovacs? That's why I'm kind of wondering about.
I found it very interesting.
Ahead,
I saw a video by Jennifer Zhang, who was actually formerly a guest on this show. She does a fantastic YouTube channel called Inconvenient Truths by Jennifer Zhang. And on one of her episodes, she had a video which was purportedly people in China trying to get the vaccine. And there were about 300 people stampeding up a ramp and forcing their way into a door to make darn sure that they got the vaccine. This is in the context where China is telling us that only 4,000 people have died from it in China. I found that very interesting.
Well, I wish I know you guys are the only guys that even bring this up on a lot of unless you go online and then
Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that information about China and thought about China and commentary about China, why do you think it's so hard to find it? I mean, if you know where to look, there's quite a bit of it. But most all of it is citizen journalism when it gets right down to it.
True. That's
You're
very
absolutely
true.
right. I've got no what am I supposed to tell you? I like your Aussie guy. Like he said, Aussie, goy, baby. Love you. Well, if you want, that's just one more. If you want to go overseas, like I said, my friends, they want to do stuff. They have good friends over there and all that stuff. And one of them got locked in the Philippines for like 8 months because he couldn't get out because of this and that and the vaccine stuff.
Oh, I bet he was having fun.
Serious business.
Yeah, it is serious business. And it's funny. I know some people who are traveling in the next couple of days, and it's a rigmarole to travel. Like if you want to go to Europe, you gotta schedule your test before your airplane lands. You got to have a test before you get on the airplane, and you got to prove that you're virus free after you have the test. And if you can't do all of that stuff, then you go into a 2-week quarantine. Sorry, that's the way it is.
Yeah, I remember landing in Manila from, I think it was someplace in the South Pacific. Maybe I was flying in from Australia, I don't know. But when we got off the plane, we came around, and before we got through customs, they had this big machine that looked at you and flashed your temperature. And I looked at that machine, and I thought, oh, Lord, don't let me have a temperature here. Not in the Manila airport.
They started that during the SARS. No, they started that during the SARS. I mean,
yeah, it was during SARS, yeah.
Well, when they talk to people that have traveled, this is nothing new. This is not like something that just dropped on our doorstep. I mean, anyway, well, like you said, just take care of yourselves if you're traveling.
Yeah, amen to that. And you're getting into some very interesting territory there.
Steve, we greatly appreciate the call. Thank you. His perspective is actually pretty good. Let's check in with Colonel Terry, see what he has to say today. Terry, what have we hit on that struck your nerve?
Well, I'll bring you back. When I tried to call 40 minutes ago, but it's all right. I'll bring you back to your topic on water resources and California, et cetera. Look, the solution is clear. The big picture solution is small, efficient nuclear power plants like are on U.S. submarines and smaller ships that are reliable and can produce electricity, obviously, and huge amounts of desalinated water that we can draw from the 6,000 miles plus of Pacific. And then we can dispose of the brine far out into the ocean ecologically safely. And speaking of ecological, fossil fuels, oil, coal, natural gas, are environmentally and ecologically obsolete and destructive. And we have a solution with nuclear plants converting our economy to electricity and stored electrons.
Colonel Terry, with all due respect.
What?
Hydrocarbons is what's for breakfast. It's how we eat. It's where our food comes from. It's how we live. So though you might think it's passé, it is what it is. It is us, those hydrocarbons. The nuclear reactors of which you speak are a great idea. I always wondered why not. Hyman Rickover, what a smart dude.
Well, you know who actually uses the small power plants he's talking about, the nuclear power plants? They're all over France.
Correct.
That's correct. That's correct.
And have you ever, look, let me ask the question that everybody knows the answer to. Have you heard of a nuclear disaster in France?
No, but I know that the French built the Wuhan Virology Institute.
Well,
but you're absolutely right, Terry. So why haven't we done that? Why haven't we, taken the technology that was put on the plate by Hyman Rickover in the development of the nuclear navy and fired up those small, efficient...
I saw this personal up front in Washington over a decade. The oil company, fossil fuel industry, has bribed our Congress, both parties.
Well, everybody bribes our Congress.
Well, especially the fossil fuel industry. They know.
Well, so why can't the nuclear industry bribe our congressmen?
Well, they don't have the same revenues, in part.
It's got a point.
You got a point. Okay.
So let me ask you a question that I've asked, people that I want to hear the answer from on this one. Do you think we ought to ban lobbyists?
Oh, yes. We should restrict them and restrict how much they can bribe members of Congress and how much in bribes and campaign contributions our Congress can receive.
All we need is some lobbyists to convince Congress of that.
we need people with wisdom and backbone to take over our government in terms of running for Congress, both parties. We don't have.
Yeah, that's for sure. Agree with you there.
So there's the plant issue. It's been filed in Missouri. This federal case proceed with massive discovery.
Is that a dirty word?
Well, I don't know. I just so you know, Terry, I dumped the little phrase you said there only because I don't want to get into trouble with anybody.
Right. I think it's permitted, but I'm okay.
Well,
is it one of the 7 deadly words? Nobody knows because you have.
We can't say the 7 dirty words on the radio.
There you go.
All right. Anyway,
I was interested. I would be very interested.
Thanks for the call, Terry.
Just a minute,
gentlemen.
Okay, are you still there, Terry?
Yeah, I haven't dumped him.
Okay, good. What do you think that Xi Jinping is doing by pulling the rug out from underneath the Chinese economy?
I don't think he intended to do it.
Well, wait a minute, though. He did, though. When he put the restrictions and the controls on how you can lend money to buy
the 3 red lines.
The 3 red lines. He pretty much knew what he was doing.
Well, that could be part of his maintaining control. It could be Maoist ideology. The man is definitely capable of imposing himself brutally on all of China. Clearly, that's the case. I'm afraid he's going to survive.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call,
you, Terry.
All right, let's take another call here. We're running out of time on this hour. I can't believe how fast these hours go. Let's talk to Dan in Salinas. Dan, you're on China Watch Radio.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I want to share a personal experience with drug abuse in China with you guys.
Oh, good.
But before I go into that, first about the hypersonic missile. I first heard about it in about 2016, 2017. China announced they achieved hypersonic missile technology.
Wow, I'm sorry I missed that. I didn't. They announced that. It went right over my. I did not hear that. I would have been frightened back then.
Well, you probably would have thought, "What the heck is that?" I don't know.
No, I know what a hypersonic missile is. You don't want to hear hypersonic missile and China in the same sentence. At least I don't.
Do you think it's true that they fired a hypersonic missile around the world?
What do you think, Dan?
Did we lose Dan?
Dan, you still there? Doesn't sound like it.
The shucks.
Doggone.
I was really looking forward to his story about drug use in China.
Dan, Dan, I got put on.
Can you hear me now?
I can now, Dan, yes. I don't know what happened.
Okay, I'm sorry. Somebody cut me off. But
it was Billy.
I was actually in China in 2017, and someone challenged me that China's military is better than the U.S.'s. I said, why? We have hypersonic missiles. So that's when I learned of it. The other thing, to answer your question about Xi Jinping being in power after next year, I really don't care. My question is the CCP going to be in power after the next couple of years?
Oh, please explain.
Well, aren't they, a house of cards, and they are just 10% of the country, and you have a lot of people who invested their life savings in these real estate schemes.
Yeah, the entire country.
You go on YouTube, you see a lot of frustrated people sleeping outside of Evergrande's office and saying, I'm going to kill myself if you guys don't give me my money back, that kind of stuff. So there are going to be a lot of pissed off people, and they got 9 people pissed off at one of them, each CCP member.
So Dan, let me ask you the question that really gets down to the rubber, where the rubber meets the road. Do you think that enough people in China, enough of the regular population,
9-1,
will get to the point where they'll have a revolution and take over?
Well, the Chinese is very submissive, very docile, except when it comes to their money. Right?
Yeah.
So, and you're talking about, people that send their kids or leave their kids with grandma and go to the city and work and finally be able to have a flat in one of the cities, losing all that with all that sacrifice, and there are going to be some pissed off people.
Yep. I don't disagree with that at all. Dan, I really appreciate you calling.
Well, wait a minute. What about the drugs?
Yeah, tell us about the drugs. We're running out of time here.
My mom lives in China right now. She's 83. She has a nanny. The nanny's little brother has a big drug problem, along with all his friends, and it's a fentanyl type drug. It's not like marijuana.
Wow.
And he was jailed. They couldn't find him for 9 months. They tried the police station, they tried the jails, they tried everything. Nobody would tell them where this guy was held. And it is a major problem. And the government is not kid glove with these people like we are.
Wow. So are they taking him and incarcerating them until
they get off the fentanyl
or something?
Yeah, well, I guess straighten out.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, that was worth waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the call.
Yeah, we appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
John T., we're running out of time here. Any final comments before I have to take the final commercial break?
Final comment is that, boy, we had a lot of things that we never got to talk about today. I sincerely hope that...
we save them for next week.
Yeah, we've got, we were going to talk about the CIA's new department that's focused on China. We were going to talk about... we're going to talk about some...
We're talking about the Fauci revelations.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. Then there's some activists protesting the Beijing Olympics. So please, everybody, get in touch with us. If you're enjoying this show, then, be part of the show and go to ChinaWatchRadio.com and sign up for the newsletter. We'll keep in touch that way. It'd be great to have you with
support our sponsors of Sushi Market Sprouts, best sushi in the world, and then Taiko Ramen in the Capitol
I'm a
Mall.
ramen fan, and that's some of the best ramen.
That is the best ramen in town. Yeah,
it's gourmet ramen, believe it or not.
So support our sponsors and tune in and tell your friends about China Watch Radio.
All right.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
People do not like going to the dentist unless they're going to this dentist. Hello, folks. Michael Olson here with Dr. Guy Peabody. How has healthcare changed with respect to dentistry over the past 20 years, Doctor?
Well, overall, healthcare has changed in a way where people are being treated a little more like a number. So one of the things we're excited about is we get to be that blast from the past. We're more of your Marcus Welby kind of office. We know our patients. We know their family members. We don't treat them like a number, and we give them the time and the care to give them the quality result they want, and they feel well cared for.
What is the result when you've restored dental health to somebody who hasn't had any for a long time? What kind of change does that affect in them?
Well, it brings about a tremendous sense of confidence within them and peace of mind.
Call Dr. Guy Peabody for a consultation today and wake up to a beautiful smile tomorrow. 831-457-0343 or visit drpeabody.com.
After the tremendously difficult time of COVID, heartache, fear, and isolation, we all need art more than ever. Art that challenges us, art that makes us laugh, and art that takes our breath away. Pivot, the Art of Fashion, is all that. Join us on October 23rd at 7:30 p.m. for a feel-good time outside at the Tannery Art Center in Santa Cruz, California. Pivot, the Art of Fashion's productions feature designer fashions and artists' wearable artwork in their unique style, with attention to detail and plenty of surprise performances. You don't want to miss this. For more information, check out our website at pivot-artfashion.com or find tickets available at brownpapertickets.com. Pivot, art that brings us together. Ready, set, pivot.
At Batteries Plus, we do more than fix phones and tablets. We help our neighbors power their lives. Visit Batteries Plus in-store, curbside, and online for fast and reliable phone and tablet repair. Learn more at batteriesplus.com.
That's our program for today. We want to thank you so much for participating. Jonty and Michael and I greatly appreciate you participating. Give us a call next week if you were on hold and couldn't make the show. Stick around. Flight 1080's on the way. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey.